Welcome to adding additional sections to your CV. By this point, your CV should be coming along quite well, and we should be able to finish up with a few more details over the next few sessions. It can be tricky to decide what to include on a CV, so here are a common list of sections someone might consider putting on a CV. So how does one decide? Consider why you're including the information. Are you adding every tiny little thing you've done just to make it look like you have a lot of stuff? Or in other words, make sure you're being genuine in why you decide to include information on your CV. If you're adding fluff, just don't. It's obvious and unprofessional and tacky. It's definitely appropriate to show the other jobs you've had since graduating from high school. If you want to make it clear this includes positions different than your healthcare experience, you can label it something like additional work or employment history. Start with your most recent experience and go backwards chronologically. You might decide to include descriptions, or you might decide just to list them. Either way, be sure to include the company name, location, particularly city and state, position title, and dates. Here are a couple of samples. It is certainly appropriate to include professional associations, affiliations, or memberships you may have. Perhaps you are already a member of the Utah Academy of Physician Assistants or the American Academy of Physician Assistants Student Academy. You could also include other memberships you've been a part of, and if you would like, you may include dates. This would allow you to include memberships that have maybe lapsed without making it look like you're being dishonest about what's current. It is possible you may have submitted a grant proposal and was awarded the grant. This is certainly an appropriate item to also include on a CV. Include the information you think is most relevant and helpful. It would also be appropriate to add peers if they participated in the grant proposal research with you. You can also submit pending proposals as long as you label them as such. Volunteerism is also appropriate to include on a CV. You can be brief if you like, or you may include descriptions. Just try to be consistent. If you have descriptions for one opportunity, you should probably have descriptions for all of them. If you speak a foreign language, include it. Be sure to be clear about your level of competency, and be wary of including a language that you actually don't speak very well. For example, I have taken about 3.5 years of Spanish classes, but I can't say much more than hola, so I would never put it on my CV. If it is on your CV, I think it's fair game for an interviewer to speak with you in that language. If you can't manage that, it's probably not worth including on your CV. You might decide you want to show who you are in a brief summary, or give the reader an overview of what to expect. Think of this as your brand or sales pitch. This goes at the top of your CV if you choose to include this section. The summary or profile should always be written in paragraph style, not using bullet points. It is meant to be brief and concise. Often you can get away with cutting out extra words like personal pronouns or unnecessary words like including or the that don't make much difference in the outcome of what you're saying. You might decide you want to include additional skills. They can be broad, or you can narrow it to a category of skills. In this section, if you choose to include it, it should be very brief and more of a list of skills you have that are focused or relevant to the position you're applying for. This looks really nice using bullet points following a summary or profile section. Depending on what you're looking for, you could also include a brief description about interests you have related to what you're applying for. You don't want to say that you only want to work with children, for example, when you're applying for an internal medicine position. If you're applying for a faculty job, they might be interested in knowing what you would want to research or teach. As you apply for a position as a physician assistant, it might help to include a summary of what you're excited about or looking for. For example, you might want to say something about wanting to specialize in dermatology or orthopedics or in primary care. This section is similar to an objective in that it gives the readers a direction for where you are hoping to go. Again, this is an optional section. Some of you may have some presentations to list. This is for professional presentations or poster sessions. For example, if you present your poster or give a presentation at UAPA, you would include those experiences here. Traditionally, presentations should follow the format of the style guide for your industry. If you have a poster or presentation, you can follow the formatting above for the AMA or follow the link that gives more examples. Some of you may have some professional teaching experience. You may certainly include that here as well. This would include being a TA or a graduate student teaching in a course. It is also appropriate to put guest lectures that you presented, and remember to start with chronological order. My bias is to start with your most recent experience and work backwards. We'll say when instead of if, right? I have to be optimistic. When you decide to serve as a clinical preceptor yourself, you could certainly include that experience on a CV too. Or you could also include any other mentoring experiences you've participated in. If you have leadership positions or have served on committees, certainly include those on your CV as well. Usually, again, you'll want to start with the most recent position and work backward. Some people decide to include personal information, hobbies, extracurricular activities, etc. onto their CV to show well-roundedness. This section, if you choose to include it, usually goes at the end of the CV because if the readers don't get to it, there's little harm done. If you're not sure if it is appropriate to include any other areas or headings for your CV, try it and then ask for feedback. See if it's professional, see if it's effective. If it is, it's probably a good choice. If you're adding it just for fluff to make you look good, leave it out. Now we're almost done with your CV. So your next assignment is to add any additional relevant sections to your CV. Certainly, we do not expect you to include all of these sections on your CV. Stick with the ones that are relevant to the experience that you have.